Oh.
Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Chair Connor.
Present.
Longstreet.
Here.
Forcell.
Here.
Gonzalez. Here. Intern Gonzalez. Here. And Larimore Hall is not here.
Thank you. Ms. Rapp, any changes to the agenda?
Chair Connor, I would recommend that we take item number 5, which is the Park Foundation Annual Report, just following public comment. The president of the Park Foundation, Rosalind Amortigai, has another commitment and will need to leave shortly. So if we could accommodate her in that way, I think that would be very appreciated.
Certainly. Written communications? Seeing none. Moving to public comment. Any member of the public may address the Commission for up to 1 minute on any subject within the jurisdiction of the Commission that is not scheduled for a public discussion before the Commission. Seeing no speakers, we can move to item number 5. Ms. Rapp.
Well, how about Commission and staff communications?
Did you say after public? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're going to go with
We're
number 5.
going to stay in. Okay.
We're going out of order.
We're going that far out of order. Okay.
Yes,
Well,
we are.
she's worth it.
Chair Connor and Commission members, every year the Park Foundation supplies the city with an annual report of their activities over the past year, including financial information. This report goes both to you and to City Council, just as information. We have a very close working relationship with the Park Foundation, as you know, one that we appreciate very much. And so this is simply provided for your information. And as I noted before, President Rosalind Amortigai, whom some of us very much enjoy working with, and I say that because Chair Connor has served on the park board with Rosalind, as has Steve, so we've really enjoyed her leadership. And she is here just to make a few comments, and then if the Commission has any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Rapp. Is this working?
Yes, you.
Well, I don't know if you have questions, but I just want to thank you for your support of Park. And to also say, if you have any suggestions for us, we have been trying to energize Park and have it become more useful to the Parks and Rec Department and more useful than to the city as well. And it's a formidable task because every one of us are all so busy. But Steve and Ada have both served well and faithfully on the board. And I would like to know if you have any suggestions for us. Hearing none, I simply would like to say if you think of some, I would be grateful if you pass them to Ms. Rapp or Mr. Forcell. But I would love to have any feedback from you at this time.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the Commission?
Well, I have a couple. Rosalind's doing a good job. She starts the meetings on time and she finishes on time. So, the main thing that I'm interested in, she's on top of it. We are progressing along, and there are a number of things. Some are noted in here. But I note that my presentation does not include a page 2 or a page 4. Which leaves me with 17 members of the Park Commission, but only 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of them noted. Well, no, I know, and I thought other people might be interested who the other 6 people were that are contributing because it is a big group. Otherwise, I don't have any comments other than to say I think it's progressing along well.
Any other Commissioner comments?
Actually, Chair Connor and Commission Member Forcell, that is correct. You are missing 2 pages to the report, so we will send out a complete file to you in follow-up mail because that would be missing quite a bit of information.
Thank you, Ms. Rapp. Commissioner Longstreet?
Well, as I understand the Park Foundation right now, it's an all-volunteer organization, right? And I think it's a tremendous lot of work as an all-volunteer organization. I know you get a little support from the city and things, but, you know, you have done tremendous work without staff that runs a nonprofit.
Carla helps us occasionally. We do get quite a bit of help from the Parks Department, but we have one paid staff who is very part-time, but she's been with us and is invaluable to us.
Right, and I think that's, you know, that's really the key, is it's when you have a small organization.
But these are community leaders, and they could be doing more, and it's a challenge to kickstart the group and get them going. You know, we have a lot of responsibility, but I still believe we could be more effective than we are.
Then it sounds like under your leadership that will happen.
Well, I only have another 8 months or so, so we'll see. Don't hold your breath.
I wanted to echo what Stephen Beebe said about what a great job you've been doing, and being on the PARC board for 9 years and enjoying it so much. I know you've got your work cut out for you, but you're one of the best presidents we've had. So keep up the good work, and I wish you the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything.
Yes. Moving along to commission and staff communications. Any commissioner reports?
Well, yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Forsyth.
I attended the Golf Advisory Committee meeting this month, and golf seems to be on the upswing again, as it tends to go in highs and lows, and more rounds being played, some improvements being made to the golf course, and everything seems to be on track. Some innovative things are taking place over there, and everything seems to be okay with the municipal golf course.
Great. Commissioner Longstreet.
I attended the city administrators luncheon last week, where the commission chairs and vice chairs get together. As usual, it's really beneficial to hear what the other commissions are doing. We talked a bit about the update and about De La Guerra Plaza.
Anyone else? Ms. Rapp, staff communications?
Thank you, Chair Connor and Commissioners. I do have a few items that I wanted to share information with the Commission. First off, there are a couple of projects that you've had before you that are progressing through the design review process that I wanted to comment on. The East Cabrillo Sidewalk Replacement Project, if you'll remember, was before you a couple of times. The Arts and Crafts Show has appealed the HLC final approval of the plans, and that appeal goes to City Council on December 11th. There are a number of issues that they are contesting, having to do with the design of the landscaping, the amount of landscaping, the issue of the 500-foot red zone, and the inability to park there temporarily. So there are a number of issues that will go before the council, as I said, on December 11th. Our hope is that those issues can be resolved and the project can move forward. As you know, we're all very anxious to get that one done. Also, following a meeting with you, the West Beach Pedestrian Improvement Project, which is also the RDA Sidewalks Project on Cabrillo. We have had some opportunities to redesign some of the areas that were a concern and mentioned specifically by the Commission related to how certain areas near Sea Landing would be landscaped. So staff is feeling very encouraged by some of those changes in design, and that project is also continuing to move forward. On Tuesday, November 20th, staff will be making a presentation with the police department to City Council, providing an update on youth violence concerns, programs that are being offered through the police department and by the Parks and Recreation Department. This will be an expansion of the report that we gave at your last commission meeting, but I wanted to let you know in case you wanted to tune in and watch it. And I wanted to share with you that the Nonprofit Support Center has created an awards program, and the department received the first annual Leadership in Action Award for community collaboration, and it is for our involvement in the establishment of the Campership Alliance, which, as you'll recall, happened many years ago. I'm guessing 2001, something like that, and has been operating very successfully with our collaboration with PAL and other community youth serving organizations. So we were very pleased to receive this recognition, and we also received a certificate from Lois Capps. So very, very nice to have that community collaboration recognized. And in addition to that, since each of you is a member of the California Park and Recreation Society as commissioners, I'm assuming that you each got a copy of the latest magazine, which does have information on the program for the conference. The annual conference is going to be held at the end of February. It's in Long Beach, and which makes it easy to go down for a day. So I wanted to encourage you, if there were particular programs that you were interested in, that you might want to consider going down to the conference for a day. And along that line, I think I mentioned to you at some point that I'm the president of CPRS District 8, and we've been trying to increase the amount of programs provided both for professional staff, students at the colleges and universities, and for boards and commissions. So we are participating with the SLO CAPRA, which is the San Luis Obispo County California Association of Park and Recreation Commissioners and Board Members, to put on a half-day workshop for boards and commissioners. It's going to be held on Saturday, February 23rd, from approximately 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., and it's going to be at Hearst Castle. You will be receiving information on this, but I wanted to make sure that you could put that date on your calendar. And the one of the speakers is going to be Nina Gordon from the California State Parks. She'll be talking on the California Outdoor Bill of Rights. So we're also trying to bring in somebody from the state office to talk about parks and recreation on a state level. So if you could please just keep that date available, we'll be sending you information for your participation. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rapp. Moving to the Youth Council report, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you. Our last meeting for Youth Council, we discussed, we had a workshop on the social host ordinance. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but we voted that we would support the ordinance as well as contribute our recommendations to the ordinance. And we also have an upcoming trip to New Orleans. We're going to send 3 youth council members to the National League of Cities Conference. So that should be exciting. And our next youth council meeting will be the 26th of November. So it's held here at City Hall. And also we want to encourage everyone to come out to the Teen Center. It's still open for the holidays. And also we have a new art exhibit coming to the Teen Center through December. It features local teen artists, and it should be worth seeing. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Summary of council actions, Ms. Rapp. No, nothing to point out at this time? Okay. Item number 2, approval of minutes. So I am looking, if everyone's had a chance to look over the minutes, I'm looking for a motion for item number A for the meeting of, special meeting of August 15th. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second? All those in favor? Aye.
Abstain?
Okay. Item number B, passes unanimously and with one abstention. Item number B, regular meeting of October 24th. Could I have a motion for that?
I move for approval of the minutes of the October 24th, 2007 meeting.
And second?
I think you have to do that.
Yes or no? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving to special meeting of November 7th. I need a motion
Not there.
So moved.
and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Abstain?
Okay. Moving to volunteer recognition, Ms. Rapp.
I've asked our business manager, Nancy Woods, to make this presentation.
Good afternoon, Commission members. I'm happily would like to honor Mr. and Mrs. Jim and Sally Jacobson. Would you come up to the podium, please? The Russ Morrison Junior Golf Program is held weekly at the Santa Barbara Golf Club, otherwise known as Muni. And this couple is heavily involved in that program, assisting almost every week and primarily when we have the tournaments for the youth. The youth that are members of the Russ Morrison Junior Golf Program number from 75 to 100 annually, average, and they not only learn about golf weekly, but they learn about golf etiquette and responsibility, and then they also have the ability to play and have 2 tournaments during the year, a tournament for themselves and then a fundraising tournament. And Mr. and Mrs. Jacobson are heavily involved in the fundraising tournament, which normally occurs in August. Mrs. Jacobson is the mother of Russ Morrison, whom this program is named after. He was an avid golfer all his life. And Mr. Jacobson is the main fundraiser for the tournament. He beats on the doors and sends letters and cajoles people, and we make some money every year that helps this program. So I'm very pleased to honor both of them for their volunteer efforts for many years with the Russ Morrison Junior Golf Program.
Thank you so much. So I'd like to read this to you, and thank you. In appreciation from the City of Santa Barbara Parks and Recreation Department, presented to Jim and Sally Jacobson, this 14th day of November 2007, in recognition of their volunteer work and ongoing support of the Russ Morrison Junior Golf Program. Thank you so much. Congratulations. So many people you've done so many wonderful things for, so we really appreciate it. And this is for you, and would you like to say some words? My husband would. Okay, it's all yours.
Well, my wife and I both feel honored to be recognized, but recognition should truly go to all those who support this 35-plus-year-old program, which seems to be getting stronger and stronger every year. Our corporate, business, and individual sponsors, donors, that means a whole lot. And especially those adult golfers who play in our annual fundraiser, and they pay to play. It's a unique tournament. It involves the kids. In each foursome, adult foursome, we involve a junior golfer from the program. And it's a win-win situation. It's a wonderful tournament. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, we talk a lot about, how to get our youth involved in activities, and I think it's when we have caring adults that take the time to do these things that we really see a difference. So it's really appreciated.
Item number 4, Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendations. So item number A is approve the following street tree removals. A1, 1017 East Haley Street. Could I have a motion or any commissioner comment? Do we have any speakers? Or, no, we have no
No
speakers.
speakers? I'd move to approve the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendations for A1 on Haley Street.
I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number B, denial of the following street tree removal request, the 400 block of Shoreline. Seeing no speakers, I would ask for a motion or
I
comment.
have a couple of comments.
Okay, go right ahead.
The impacts of, we're denying this removal, but there was authority to move the trees, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we won't stop this project.
No, it will not stop the project.
Good, 'cause this project-
Authorizing them to be moved a short distance away.
Yeah, because this project is really important.
Thank you. Any other comments? Could I have a motion, please?
I would move that we deny the removal and accept the recommendation to move the trees.
I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Item number C, approve the following setback tree removal request. 322 East Alomar, 707 Woodland Drive, and 1017 East Haley Street. Seeing no speakers, I would ask for comment or a motion.
I'd move to approve the street tree recommendations for C1, 2, and 3.
I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number D, postpone a decision for the following street tree removal request, 25 East Anapamu Street. Any comments or a motion?
Seeing no comments, I would move to concur with staff recommendations to postpone this item D1.
I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Approve the following street tree designation for the 3000 block of State Street and the 3000 block of De La Vina. Any
I
comments?
think we should have a presentation on the street tree designation.
Yes. Would Mr. Downey?
I'm sorry, yeah. What are you asking?
We just wanted a little information on the designation for the tree, the street tree.
I'm sorry, information about the tree or about the project?
Anything you'd like to give us?
Okay. The project is going to be realigning the presentation of De La Vina at State Street. It will remove the two right turn lanes that are through lanes and improve the way traffic flows through that area. Because of that, it will open up opportunities for street trees at those locations. And given that these are new locations, they wanted to match some existing landscaping in the area to make it look similar, and that was the reason for the designation at this point.
Okay. Any commissioner questions or comments?
So is this a change in the street tree? We have a pine there, a huge pine, and some other things, right? So
There is a cedar in the current median that is designated to be moved to a new location. But the 3000 block of State Street is currently designated as king palms. The 3000 block of De La Vina is currently designated as Podocarpus gracilior. The idea was to match some landscaping a little closer to the intersection.
and these will provide a good canopy tree for,
There's several of these type of trees at the Coffee Bean, which would be across the street from this location, and it would look similar to the presentation there.
okay, because one of the things that interests me is that we make sure we have a good pedestrian, that there's some shade trees. We've been looking at some projects lately where we're not getting sort of that pedestrian protection, so that we kind of cool down our sidewalks a little bit and make them more comfortable to walk on.
Okay. Any other commissioner questions or comments? Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the street tree designation?
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 6, Annual Parks and Recreation Participation Report. For our information, Ms. Rath?
Chair Connor and Commission, the report that you have before you is still a work in progress. As we indicated to you, that we have been trying to do a better job of pulling together annual data on how many people participate in our programs in all the various services that are offered. So what we're sharing with you is just some of the key information that we received out of the FY07 document. We already know we're going to change how we collect some of this information for FY08. When this report comes to you at the conclusion of FY08, you will then see a comparison to FY07, and we will modify the FY07 numbers so everything is counted in the same way. What you have before you is just some brief little pieces of information out of that report. The report that staff did is like 40 pages. We didn't feel that you really wanted to see all of that at this point, but I assure you that it was a significant amount of detailed information on various programs broken out in a lot of different ways. Nancy Woods, our business services manager, has been working with department staff on the format and determining how the information would be collected. She's been on the lead on that project, so I'll ask her to give you an overview.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. As Ms. Rapp mentioned, this is a work-in-progress report. It's quite complex. We're trying to keep the apples and oranges separated, and so we have determined that right now we're counting things in two main areas, and that would be activities and rentals. In activities, which currently include special events, but that's one of the accounts that we are going to change for the FY08 report. So the activities numbers that you see do include some special events such as Fiesta and the summer concert series, et cetera. But we're going to do our best to separate those out. They're an apple and an orange at this current time. So underneath the activities, there are fee and no fee sections. We're also counting the number of scholarships and their value. That also varies by program. So when you see a number value in here, you can't say that it's divided by a certain even number, because each program gives us a different level, a 50% scholarship, a 75% scholarship, or a full scholarship, et cetera. We're also counting rentals in two main ways: the number of bookings, the number of attendees that come into a rental. That also is a number that can change from time to time, because when a person fills out a facility permit, they put down an estimate of the number of attendees, and we don't necessarily go and count after the fact. We're also counting the number of rental hours, which tells us how our facilities are being used and for how long. This is an overview of the 2007 data. The first category in activities is number of registrations. They can also be participations, and this count is, just a little bit below 250,000, 243,395. We also have a total count of our facility rental attendees, and this, again, as I mentioned, is a factor of what number they put in the permit. This is at a little over 519,000. This last year, fiscal 2007, we issued 628 scholarships, and that value from staff's estimation is a little over 84,000.
Excuse me. Is the facility rentals indoor and outdoor?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct, Commissioner Longstreet. When we're looking at all programs and we're breaking them out between number of fee and number of no fee, the number of fee registrations and also include participations for fiscal 07 was right around 73,500, and the number of no fee registrations was almost 170,000. We've given you a percentage because the total of 243.4, 30% are fee and 70% are no fee. Now we're talking about the data for the youth that we serve. Again, we've broken it out.
Can I ask?
Yes, Commissioner
The
Longstreet.
no fee would be our after-school programming, that kind of participation. So
also the people that attend the concerts because of the special event numbers we currently have in this number, and that
I think
type
that's
of-
really important to note, how much of the community we're serving out, within our budget.
Yes, and of course, for fiscal '08, we'll try to make that a more discrete number for you.
And just because I'm doing the presentation to council with staff on November 20th, we actually took out the special event numbers because it does overinflate the numbers in a way that we didn't really want it to at that point. But I will just tell you that 70% of our youth activities, youth participations, are in fully subsidized programs. And that's programs that do not charge a fee. That's a significant number of what we provide to the youth, that, they're receiving that benefit, and we are providing it at full cost.
So on this slide, when we are talking about the youth registrations participants, the categories of fee and no fee, approximately 16,000 fee registrations and approximately almost 78,000 no fee. Again, the percentage of the total, which is 94,000, we have 17% for fee and almost 83% for no fee in the youth category, but again, includes special events. Now we want to give you an overview of the youth by program that are participating on a program level. And we have 3 columns here: the number of participants, that also means registrations, the number of scholarships, and the value of those scholarships. You can see that the totals at the bottom correlate on the scholarships to the numbers I've already given you on a previous slide. And then this is a breakout by program of the total participation registration. So any questions about that you'd like to? We've also have a handout we've given you for some program numbers also, with the 2 green bars on it. So this is a lot of that same information, just a portion of it. If you'd like to ask any questions about this slide at this time.
And I'll just add that, part of our deliberation and deciding how to present information was really about how do we use such information when it comes time for budget development and talking about what we do in the community, which is why you'll see, if you refer to your handout, in the activities section, we break out the activities by youth and adult, and we break it out by whether there's a fee or no fee, and then also with scholarships. And we figured that really is, just as we're all sitting here really quite surprised that 70% of our youth participation is in 100% subsidized programs. That's why our general fund support for recreation programs is so important. And so, but this document really kind of breaks that data out for you, and in future years it'll be more comparative.
And I believe it's the final slide in the presentation. This is the breakout by program for the no-fee activities for the youth. And there's no scholarship or value here because there's no fee, so we're not giving any scholarships. Just in case you thought there was something missing here, this is strictly a participation number by program. And this also equates to a number that we gave you in the report and on a previous slide. So again, this is that 70% that Ms. Rapp is referring to.
Commissioner Longstreet.
The number of 15,175 in aquatics, is that competitions?
Let's see if I can find it.
It's classes, it's camps, it's participation, drop-in participation in the afternoons for rec swim at Los Baños. So that is the majority of the use.
Okay. Great. Any other commissioner comments? I'd like to say.
I had a question on. I had a question on the number of the number of scholarships. Number 1, I think you had 2,146, and then you had 134 scholarships.
And that's in the youth activities program only, yes.
Right. A couple of questions on that. One is there a limitation as to the number of scholarship that you provide, number 1? Number 2, procedures for the scholarships. You have certain procedures that are established. And number three, the establishment of the amount of the scholarship. So there are about three different questions.
Yes, in youth activities, we do have the scholarship limit that is given to us in the budget by the city council. We have $60,000 for the after-school program. That's where a lot of this money is coming from. And the second question was, or the third question was the criteria. Yes, each person registrant who wants to receive a scholarship fills out a special form, and we ask the questions on the various other types of maybe revenue or aid they are getting so that we can have an understanding of their need. And they ask if they want a full scholarship or a lesser percentage scholarship, and we make that determination by the criteria we've set up. And I think you had a third.
Then I have one more question. Just as an example, what if I have 5 kids, and according to the procedures and criteria, do they qualify?
Okay, let me see if I can add a bit more information, because we have refined and formalized our scholarship program over the years. We base our scholarships using the criteria most commonly used by the school district, and so it's really kind of an accepted criteria for that we apply across the board for how people qualify. And we often will work with the school and personnel at the school in terms of determining the need and the family's need. And it is a case-by-case basis. Also, with the amount of money, the $60,000 that Ms. Woods was referring to, that is strictly for the after-school programs. And some of those scholarships that you see up there are also for summer camps. The city, in the programs that we run, summer camps that we run, we subsidize camperships at our cost in the city-run programs like Nature Camp and Aqua Camp. Then we negotiate with the contract instructors that are doing other camps, and we ask them to participate in providing the scholarships. So we work with them to get scholarships for those programs as well. We will provide scholarships upon, when we get a request, we will consider it and work with them, but we also have formal scholarship programs like for the after-school program and for our summer camp program. The summer camp program goes through the Campership Alliance. So it's really, that was one of the successes of the Campership Alliance that I was referring to earlier, is it took all of that out of the various community organizations like the Natural History Museum and the Zoo and the YMCA and City Parks and Recreation, and it all was centralized through the Police Activities League, and they run that program, and they determine who qualifies and how much scholarship they'll get. So again, to communicate that those are very structured programs, we try to be very responsive, and for Parks and Recreation, the more scholarships we give, it just has a revenue impact for us, because the programs will cost us the same amount to offer, but the more scholarships we give just means less revenue for us. And so as the need has increased, we have tried to accommodate as many scholarships as we can.
Last question, it goes back to the example. If I have 5 kids and 5 qualify, do they get selected? It's not a penalized because I have 5 in one group.
No, it's based on the, and I'm not going to say no, but it depends how many scholarships are available and what their situations are.
Any other comments? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Woods.
You're welcome.
Moving to item number 7, I might want to tell anyone who is sitting in the audience, if you would like to speak to this item, to please fill out a speaker slip and bring it up to Ms. Rapp. Thank you. Number 7, consideration of requests to locate a Verizon's telecommunication facility at the Santa Barbara Municipal Tennis Facility at 1414 Park Place. Ms. Rapp.
Jill Zachary, Assistant Director, will lead in with this item.
Chair Connor, members of the Commission, I'm going to provide a short presentation, and we have Mr. Dino Petrino from Ridge Communication who's going to follow up with the conceptual proposal for a wireless facility at the Santa Barbara Municipal Tennis Courts. The presentation today will give you a little bit of background on what the department has been asked to consider for the past couple of years, talk a little bit about the city charter and the issues related to that. Specifically, as I mentioned, there is a concept proposal for you to conceptually consider for the Santa Barbara Municipal Tennis Courts. The Tennis Advisory Committee did consider this, and we have Gary Clark from that advisory committee who would like to make some remarks to the Commission. Staff has some recommendations for the Commission to consider, and then we'll review what we're asking you to do this evening. Since about 2005, so the past couple of years, the department has received communications and proposals from different wireless companies to consider cellular facilities at our city parks. This is something that's happening throughout the country as people use cellular telephones more and more for their communication. There's a greater and greater need to provide the type of service that people expect. The one location that we have considered conceptually in more detail, other than the slide mentions Mackenzie Park and Las Positas Tennis, is the municipal tennis courts for a variety of reasons, which you'll hear more about through the presentation. I would like to mention that part of the reason why we're here today is we do need the Commission to consider this before moving forward. This is something that would be carefully considered by the City Council, and then also carefully considered by the community at large. We did notice property owners within 450 feet of the tennis courts for this meeting. So in an effort to begin to get the word out that this is under consideration, it's our intent to reach out to the community as well, since it is within their backyard. The city charters, you know, Santa Barbara is a charter city, has a specific section that relates to the sale, the lease, the use of city property, and has a section, Section 520, which requires that both a majority of the City Council and a majority of city voters approve the sale, the lease, or other method of encumbering land that's dedicated for park and recreation purposes and other public purposes. At the same time, and we bring this to the Commission tonight because it's part of the consideration, there is a section, part of the section does allow concessions, permits or leases, but it's based on the finding that that use is accessory to and compatible with the use of the area for park and recreation purposes. So part of any consideration of allowing a cellular or wireless facility on land that's zoned for park and recreation purposes is that it is accessory and compatible to that existing use. At the Santa Barbara Municipal Tennis Courts, a number of different locations were evaluated, and 3 specifically are ones that we will show you, although this evening I believe the presentation will focus solely on the Parks Yard. The first area is a landscape area between the stadium court and, the first area is between the landscape area between the courts and Highway 101, so at the end of the parking lot. The second area is the landscape area between the stadium court and Old Coast Highway. And the third area is the Parks Yard. And Mr. Petrino will speak more directly to the Parks Yard proposal. This aerial gives you a sense of those locations. Let's see if I can get the mouse to work. This is location 1. So here's the parking lot in this area right here. The other location is here, and this is something that the Tennis Advisory Committee did discuss. There was another location which we're not really discussing in here because we determined it's really not feasible. But sort of the feasible locations are this one, And this area here, this is Park Place, Old Coast Highway. And then this is a view of the Parks Yard. And the access to the yard right now is from Old Coast Highway, and this obviously is Highway 101. As I mentioned, the Tennis Advisory Committee did have a discussion about this proposal on a conceptual level and preferred both the Stadium Court location or the Parks Yard location. Some of the discussion by the Advisory Committee related to, and staff has had a similar discussion, the interest in keeping areas of the municipal tennis courts available for recreation purposes, whether they're to be used by tennis players or if we were to ever develop a pocket park for the area residents, knowing that any least use for a cellular facility would require the construction of a building, which would take that land away from any park or recreation purpose. Another key issue for the Advisory Committee was related to revenue. One of the key elements of having a lease agreement with a wireless company is that the city would receive revenue for that lease, and interest on the part of the Advisory Committee and the staff level discussion as well has been that revenue would be used for improvements at that facility. From a staff perspective, again, in looking at the locations at this particular area, this particular site, it seems that the Parks Yard might be the most likely to consider, based on its relationship to the surrounding neighborhood. It's furthest away from residences. It's in an area that would unlikely be used for recreation purposes. At the same time, would like to note for the Commission, as in your staff report, it would take away land that's currently used for park operations. So it is currently used, and anything that's put there on a permanent basis would take away that land for park operations. One thing that we'd like to recommend the Commission consider this evening is, when we look at this type of project, we are also considering our need to find alternate sources of revenue to continue to provide programs and services to the Santa Barbara community. And so in the initial staff consideration, we are taking that into consideration and would like to point it out to you. At the same time, we are very clear that not all parks may be appropriate locations for this type of use. And it is our recommendation that it's something that's considered on a case-by-case basis. So for the Commission, the things that we are asking you to do this evening are to generally consider whether leasing land at the municipal tennis courts is a feasible and appropriate use of that land for a wireless facility. We'd like you to consider and provide comments on the conceptual proposal from Ridge Communications. And please note, it is very conceptual. If this is to move forward, extensive design review would occur. It would be reviewed by the Architectural Board of Review. There are many more steps to be taken. And then also from this meeting, based on the Commission's discussion and recommendation, we would then proceed to City Council, again for a conceptual discussion, because ultimately the City Council will be making findings that this is an appropriate use of park and recreation property and land. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I think I'll turn it over to Mr. Petrino unless the Commission has any questions.
I have lots of questions, but I think I'll wait to hear his presentation.
Welcome, Mr. Petrino.
Thank you. My name is Dino Petrino with Ridge Communications, representing Verizon Wireless. Before I begin my PowerPoint presentation, I have hard copies here for you. Can you hear me just fine? Okay. We've approached the City of Santa Barbara Parks and Recreation Department, as Ms. Zachary mentioned, to consider leasing park land, specifically the Municipal Tennis Center. And we've come up with some ideas, some very conceptual ideas on location and design. And we put some sketches together. What we're doing here today is not looking for any kind of acceptance of a design, but simply to give you an idea of what kind of facility would be considered at the specific park location, and just conceptually the designs. First of all, the project areas of consideration which have been mentioned is the planter at the east end of the parking lot, the tennis court stadium. Now, I want to make clear that initially we conceptually designed something, put a sketch together for within the stadium. You have a storage area there. We were made aware that that storage area is basically not used, so we designed a facility within that storage area, but that could be in the storage area or outside the tennis court stadium area in the landscape configuration that Ms. Zachary had mentioned. And then there's the park's yard, of course. Now, this is the planter area, and at the end is where we would consider a facility, and this is just an enlargement of that. And this is simply a sketch of the facility. Here's the parking lot here. If you notice, north is up, and tennis courts in this area. And we were looking in this kind of passive landscape area near the large pine tree to put the equipment for the facility, Verizon's facility, and then use a pole, an existing light standard, or a pole standing by itself to support the antennas. Again, this is all conceptual. The configuration can be changed, and this would all be done if we got an approval to move forward with the lease at the development application stages. Now, this is the stadium area, the storage area, which was indicated that wasn't being used and can be considered for a wireless facility. And this would be a sketch of that facility, very conceptual. Here's the tennis court itself. Again, north is this way. In this area, we would have the equipment building. And I want to remind you that in all of these locations, we're looking at locating within a flood zone. And in order to compensate for that flood zone, we would need to consider raising the height of the bottom of the facility, its foundation, so it's out of the flood zone area. That flood zone hasn't been detailed as in terms of its height, whether it's 3, 5, or 7 feet in height, where we would start from. So that would come at a later time. And then the elevation, west elevation of the same facility, here's the bleachers. And this would be the support structure. It would be one of the light posts of the tennis courts, and it would be a dual use. It would provide lighting for the tennis court and then have the antennas above. Again, very conceptual. And I just want to note, we're looking at somewhere between a 3 and 7 feet height of foundation, and then you begin because of the flood zone. The park's yard, here's looking southwest, where we can consider putting the lease area being the most out of the way of the city Parks and Recreation use. And then here's looking southeast, and you could see the range of openness to consider the storage that the Parks and Recreation would be able to use. We've come up with, actually this is an old drawing that I was able to pull up, and Old Coast Highway in US 101. Here's the entrance, and we would consider this small lease area for the equipment building and then the post, the antenna support structure, pole, if you will. Again, this shows kind of a decorative feature, but you can see we're needing height in order to project over buildings and trees in order to transmit a signal or receive a signal from your cellular telephone. This basically concludes the PowerPoint presentation, and I open it up to any questions you may have.
Ms. Rapp, did you want to add anything before we went to questions, or? Okay. Any questions of commissioners?
I have a number of questions.
Yes, since you're on the advisory committee.
I am the representative, the liaison for the Tennis Advisory Committee, and I didn't go to the special meeting because I play tennis there, and I'd met with Gary and Kathy Carpenter to walk around and look at the different locations several weeks ago, maybe a little longer now. Let's start with the location. When we were speaking of it, you know, I was at least able to consider the possibility of buying this program when it was located in Section 2. I don't know if you can bring that back up. On our little map, that's the area between the stadium court and the Old Coast Highway. And the reason for that was it's about 58 feet tall, something like that in total. The telephone poles there are close to that. There's some trees that are very big. It could actually sort of be hidden and wouldn't be too obtrusive in that location in number 2. Not in the tennis stadium court itself in the storage area, but over by the road, yeah, in that area. All right. Now flip to the next one, and let's see what it would look like in the middle of a big open field. Go to number 3. All right. Now you're going to put a 58-foot tall thing with a 20-foot by 8-foot, or whatever it is, building somewhere there. Going to be much more obtrusive. Both people driving by on the freeway with this giant thing, people driving on Coast Village. I know we haven't heard from the houses that are up there above the country club, but I'm sure we will. I don't think that would be a preferred location. Excuse me?
Keeping it to questions.
Oh, thank you. So I know there are reasons that we've shifted over to this particular location, but I don't think that is the best location. Also, when we talk about the city charter and we get down to talking about that it would normally require a vote of the electors, and then says the wording is you can get by that with purposes to which the property is devoted by the city, permits compatible with and accessory to. Okay, who's going to make that determination? Is that going to be the city attorney? And how are they possibly going to determine that a cell tower is compatible with the tennis court use?
Good question.
That would be, Jill, would you like to challenge that one, or do we want to bring in a legal mind, or?
Chair Connor and Commissioner Forcell, we have not had specific discussions about what the rationale might be, with the exception that cellular telephones are in widespread use all over the country and all over the world. And people that use public and private facilities use cellular phones. It may be that with the Commission's consideration and Council's consideration, that there is a finding that it is accessory to, because there's no cell service, I believe, at this location.
Okay, well, I would.
But I wouldn't want to speculate
I
what
would,
that
I would
finding
speculate that it
might
would be
be.
just the opposite, that, there is cell service there because I use my cell phone there, but every city and every county charter, or even non-charter counties and cities have different wording, and this is all we have to work with, and I'm just reading this and finding it difficult to see how we're ever going to get a city attorney or someone to agree to that. Now, I could be wrong. It's been a long time since I was at law school.
Chair Connor and Commissioner Forcell, it would be based on findings that the Park and Recreation Commission would make that would go to City Council, and that City Council would concur with those findings, and that would be the process.
Okay.
And I would add to that, and in the staff report, we did address some of the potential benefits to the community and to the Parks and Recreation Department, which is the reason that we're bringing this forward to you for consideration and for this exact discussion, because you've hit the key point.
No, well, I think it's a good discussion. So let me add a couple more points. Historic Land Commission, I understand, has to also take a look at this Historic Land Commission. I cannot see how they would approve this in this location, but that'll be left to their commission. Now, as far as the amount of money that you've suggested that we may get here, and I know that's all negotiable, but if we're talking about this being for a period of between 10 and 25 years, I would suggest that if it were to go forward, I would want to see the shortest period of time, in that it would give us an opportunity then to evaluate, one, how obtrusive it looks there and whether it actually is, what benefit it is, and whether the community is on board for it, rather than a 25-year commitment. Secondly, I know the science is still unsettled about safety issues concerning these, so again, I'd want the shorter period of time. As far as the amount goes, it seems $25,000 to $40,000 a year, doesn't seem like much. I know I opened my Verizon bill today, and, I think that we should negotiate something certainly a little higher than that for having this tower in this location. The last question I have, well, one of the last questions I have for you is, I know at the Tennis Advisory Committee, the reason the vote went to move this forward, one of the main reasons was that we would be assured that this money would then be spent on the municipal tennis courts, which are in need of much repair. And I guess I'm wondering whether there would be a special fund set up and how we would be assured that that money over those years would actually go to municipal rather than in the general fund for Parks and Recreation. We have a certain number of things we want to accomplish down there in a year, resurfacing or something in the bathrooms or some repair, other than, staff being able to just say, well, they have enough money to do their projects because they're getting their $25,000 or $40,000 or whatever it is from the cell tower, from Verizon, so, let's move this money to another tennis court or another facility. So, I think the Tennis Advisory Committee was adamant that, their vote was contingent upon that money being put in either a special account or something, that it would be additional money for that particular facility. I think that's enough.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have some questions, and I personally would like to hear from the Tennis Advisory Committee before we go too much farther. But square footage, can you give me an on-the-ground square footage?
It's somewhere in the 800 square foot.
Okay. So what size is a tennis court? Give me some relationship here.
Well, 800 square foot is
20.
two-car garages.
Two-car, okay. And we're going up 58 feet on this one, you think?
Something to that effect, yes.
Okay. The other question I had is, right now, this is just coming to us from Verizon. Can this be used by other companies?
It certainly can. We can consider, or the city can consider, a carrier, not simply Verizon, but a carrier developing a co-location facility where another carrier can mount its antennas on the support
No, I'm
structure.
talking about using the same antenna, because we don't want to see the proliferation of many of these sites along the way. I think we need to see the cooperation within the companies to use the same sites.
They can use the same locale, but they can't use the same antennas. That's not possible.
Somebody told me otherwise. Because that would be a concern I would have, would be that we not be having these things popping up all over the place, that we're serving a need, and that we do it as simply as possible.
Commissioner Gonzalez, any questions? Okay. Could we hear from the Tennis Advisory Committee? Gary Clark, please. Thank you.
Madam Chair, fellow commissioners, and Ms. Rapp, Ms. Zachary. First, I just want to say thank you for allowing us to have a voice in this process. I really appreciate that. We had a special meeting with Ms. Zachary to review the proposal to, we actually did a site visit, meaning the whole committee. We walked around the municipal facility to make sure that we understood exactly what the locations that were being spoken about. And we're very, very clear that site number 2, I think it was, and that is at the end of the parking lot, was not an option for us. We would not support that.
Well, that's number 1, Gary.
Or 1, sorry. Number 2 and number 3, we would be willing to support. And I thank Commissioner Forcell for clarifying that we were adamant about the fact that the revenue that would come in, we would want to see it as an enhancement to the current tennis services program budget, rather than it, be sliced away and parceled to some other program, et cetera. We want to see those funds stay within the tennis program so that we can actually build it up, because it's a very successful program. The cost recovery is excellent, so I'd like to see it improve even more. We were concerned also about the aesthetics. Site number 2 is actually a really good site as far as aesthetics are concerned, because there are existing mature trees. Mr. Forcell actually spoke about the telephone poles that are fairly tall there, so we think it's a really good site. And I think that's it. That's it. Thanks again for letting us have a voice. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Thanks, Gary. I had a question. Location number 2. It was one of the slides. It showed the tree and it showed the tower. It was right before the stadium area. The slide right before that. Yeah, I think it was. It was a diagram. Yes, that's it. Thank you. Now, is that true to life? Is that tree that height and the tower that height? In other words, is that pretty right on?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is that also in the floodplain area?
Yes, the entire...
every site is in the floodplain area. Okay. Is there a difference in the floodplain area? In other words, is it lower in some spots, higher in others?
It is. For instance, the landscape area at the end of the parking lot is somewhat raised because that's just the nature of how it was developed. And that would allow a carrier, not simply Verizon, to utilize that height to create a more shallow foundation, so the foundation wouldn't be as tall as the building itself.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Question. Is there any plans to expand the tennis courts at any time?
Chair Connor and commissioners, that was actually I was going to include that in some of my comments. This is because Commissioner Forcell talked about the possibility of development. And I do think it's important to note, we are a department with a lot of old facilities that are in sore need of rehabilitation. And the municipal tennis facility is the only facility that twice we've had community groups approach us about the possibility of working together to renovate the facility and perhaps increase how it's used and work together in that. Neither of those opportunities ever came to anything. But I think it's important to note that, and I would guess maybe the only other exception is Los Baños. We've had communication with groups that have expressed that interest, and we're pursuing that. But I do think that that's important to note, and I would ask that we keep that in mind as we're looking at where we might put a big concrete structure that would perhaps limit how the facility space might be used sometime in the future if, in fact, there were to be a renovation and an expanded use of that facility, if that would ever happen. So I do think that that is a factor to consider. So, yes.
Commissioner Longstreet has a question or comment?
I have some comments now that we're to that. First off, to me, it has to be not active recreation land. We can't take rec land to use for this purpose. It has to be sort of the auxiliary lands we have around. And that's why that site where, there could be use for tennis tournaments and things, we're not going to ever mess with that. It also, the revenue has to go to tennis, and it has to be enough to make a difference. So, we've put off projects there in the 12 years I've been here forever. So, we're looking at really, it's one of the facilities that needs the most work, and we know that. So it has to go there, and it has to be, like you say, not supplanting something else. We all saw that in the lottery in the schools, and it didn't work out so well for anybody. To me, we're really at the beginning. We're just conceptually here saying that we think this should go to the next step, which is City Council. We don't have the authority to enter into any contracts with any other agencies. This project needs a lot of aesthetic help, which we are not prepared to demand or give, and the company is going to face ABR, and that will be worked out. We would require in a lot of screening. I think anything that comes forward would have to have, trees and all the things we saw in any of those sites to help offset that. So I don't think they have an easy road ahead of them, but I would not want to stop the process now because I'm sure somebody down the road's going to try, but I think it is something we should be pursuing. I mean, cell phones aren't going away, cell towers aren't going away. And if we have land at various sites that become appropriate and we can maintain our facilities better, I would like to see us explore that. So, again, I don't think we should take any second place on aesthetics. I think we have to be careful in placement. And I think we have to be very clear, like you say, where the money goes and what it helps for.
Commissioner Forcell.
Yeah, I'd just like to note for the record that Ms. Longstreet and I did tend to agree on an item.
Hallelujah.
And I
got to rethink this.
I've probably scared her off now. Yes, she's exactly right that this is just step one, and even if we did want to stop the process now, we don't have the authority to do that. So ours is, as indicated on our sheet, provide comments, provide direction. And I think we've pretty much done that. Is there more that you need?
Anything for
Chair Connor and Commission, to take it a bit further, I'm going to toss it back to the Commission only to be very clear. If the commission did not support the feasibility and appropriateness of having a cell telecommunications site on parkland, that should be made clear now to staff, because that does end the issue. So I just really want to be clear that you do have that. That's why we're here.
No, I hear what you're saying.
Right.
I would not take active recreation land. What I'm saying is I don't want this building sitting next to the ball field, or taking up someplace we're going to put in a playground, or taking one of the tennis courts and saying we're plopping down a cell tower here. We have some land, though, that is around the edges that isn't appropriate to use for other things, that isn't a loss to the community recreation life.
To add what Commissioner Longstreet is saying, and I agree with both Commissioner Forcell and Longstreet about the fact that we do have a lot of our facilities in disrepair. And if this is a way for us to help enhance those facilities without impeding recreational area, I am on board with this as well. Commissioner Gonzalez.
I had just one question to Mr. Dina. Do you have a timeline that will expire the proposal?
No. We want to do this yesterday.
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, welcome to Santa Barbara.
We know.
Would there be any other things you'd like to add, Ms. Rapp?
A couple of things.
Okay.
Staff brings this forward with the clear understanding, and our understanding has been from the very first time we had one of the cell companies approach us. It is our belief that whichever facility the revenue is generated from, that the revenue stays to benefit that particular facility. And to assure you that the city has specific accounts that can be set up and designated where the funds are only used in that way. The Parma Trust is a good example of that. Those funds are held separate and spent only on Parma Park. So I just do want to assure you that is how we would proceed, and that is how we would view. Otherwise, why would we want to go through all of this? And this is to augment what the city currently can fund for maintenance and improvements. So just to, have that be clear. And so what we would be asking is for the commission then to take action and to, do you support the feasibility and appropriateness of this type of use at this particular facility? If you do, with those comments, we would go forward to City Council asking as to their concurrence or not. And then staff would, presuming that we get your concurrence, presuming that we get the concurrence at City Council, then we would, because we are the property owner, begin the process to allow them. We would negotiate the contract, but then we would proceed with the design process, et cetera. But that would be the process. So you will be, at this time, you are being asked to, we have some of your comments, but being, very clear and very specific in your recommendation.
So if we were to craft a motion such as that, we would like, we
Hitting
support
this point, yeah.
the consideration of the leasing of land at Muni Tennis for telecommunications on the condition that the revenue be directed to Muni, that we not impact active recreational area, and that the aesthetics are approved by the, the appropriate boards, that it, or do we even need, we don't even need to go into that.
I think your concern that the aesthetics are important need to.
And that the, the aesthetics be improved, considered.
Well, I think the one thing that we're skipping out, most importantly, there is location, and I make a different suggestion.
Okay.
Since number C is really the only item here that the others are discussion, first, could I ask that we, before it goes to City Council, that you send us an email with written out what's going to go to City Council and let us review it, because this has been kind of a convoluted discussion. I want to be sure that all the items that I've mentioned are in there. And if we're really asking, we have one thing up here that you're asking for, but here what you've asked for is provide direction to staff on whether it is in the best interests of the department and the community to forward the item to City Council for further consideration. Maybe that's a simpler motion to make. And then with the attached sheet of comments to go with it, instead of this feasibility. Because I have a little trouble with this wording, and I have a little trouble with the idea of not putting in the location, because frankly, I at this point would not vote for it in Section 3. So if the motion were crafted only as BB has indicated, and it didn't indicate a location, I would have to vote no on that.
And I would prefer to not put a location in it, because I can see this going down the road a year from now at ABR, and there being some other negotiations, technology changing, and I don't really want to close that door. And I think of that front area, it might be that's not my first choice right up there on the front of it, because I thought we had talked at times about a playground there or other activities there. So I just don't want to close the door in a short meeting that hasn't explored everything, when we don't even know if it's going to go to council and fly there. So that's my thought with it. I would rather see it well screened in the yard that we're not going to put any other recreation use in. And I'm sorry, Santos, but when it comes back, there's things we're going to want out of that. We're going to want access roads and screening and other things that are going to come in that location. So it's
Okay,
just
we'll make your motion then.
Yeah,
Okay.
could you recraft that?
Yeah.
I think you did.
Okay, I was reading it out of here. That we would like staff to move this forward to council to the consideration of leasing land at the Muni Tennis for telecommunications. And the one thing I want in there is that the revenue has to be dedicated to the Muni facility. I think that's it. I think that's simple, and all the rest will come around.
Chair, have a
Second motion.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
See, we didn't agree in the end.
Chair Connor?
Yes.
And members of the commission, if I could just add a little bit. It would-
Absolutely.
It would be our intent to provide council with the information that you've received tonight, as well as the discussion that you've had tonight. And that would include concern about the different locations. And that, again, what we would be having at the discussion at City Council is really on a conceptual level, should this move forward. I think there will be further discussion about location. Again, although we did notice this meeting, and we did include property owners within full view of location 3, we don't have anyone this evening. However, we would continue to seek neighborhood input regardless of the location at the tennis courts. And without trying to make a suggestion that it be one location over the other when we go to council.
Will we be able to get a copy of those comments that we made prior to them going to the city council?
Yes.
And Verizon's
Ms.
not
Rapp,
opposed to any
anything-
of those
Chair,
locations.
Chair Connor and Commission, if I could, I'm just curious, the only locations that I really heard Commission's interest in discussing were the location 2 and location 3. Is that correct?
Yes.
I understood location 1 really has a use within the tennis, not a
Yes.
dream for the use within the tennis.
I think that would, if that just helps provide staff with
information.
direction that perhaps it's pursuing those 2 sites to look at what it might look like and what are the positive and the negative impacts of either one of those areas. But if we could narrow it from 3 sites down to 2 sites, that helps.
Anything more, Ms. Rapp, or Ms. Zachary?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, having concluded that, I would like to ask for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
It's merely that spring will be a little late this year. Yes, time heals all things, so I needn't cling to this fear. It's merely that spring will be a little late this year.
Part of it may be able to be seen through the
There's
opening.
there's
And we'll
one,
show you
right,
that.
and we will show you some of that when we get a little further in this. And we'll skip some of these and get to this.
Cool.
Here.
This, yeah, the spider.
The structural engineers have done their best to come up with a